Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Ricardo Hausmann is definitive on his Venezuela. Ricardo, I want to go back before your acclaim at Harvard, before your public service decades ago to your Venezuela. How did the Hausmann family get from a World War II Europe over to Venezuela? How did your family emigrate to Venezuela a lifetime ago?
Well, a Jewish family, my father, they both went through the Holocaust. My father lost both his parents. He arrived at Venezuela at age 17 with he managed to get himself to Spain. And then everybody in Spain thought that Hitler was going to take over Spain. So he ended up with another relative in Venezuela. And my mother lived through the German occupation in Belgium. And she was freed by U.S. GIs in September 1944. She was living with a Catholic family in a village in the south of Belgium until they were liberated. She lived for over a year there after, as you know, they got the papers to go to the train station in 1942. So that's how they ended up in Venezuela. And in Venezuela, they had they created a really, really nice life for themselves. And so when I grew up, Venezuela was this heaven. I had this image of Europe as this horrible place where my parents had come from.
Right. I look, Professor Hausmann, and again, this is part of the story, folks, from Venezuela to the tip of Argentina. Your Economist essay, written yesterday for Zany Minton Meadows, is absolutely scathing. You say the President of the United States is, quote, delusional. What does President Trump get wrong?
Well, he thinks that extracting oil from the ground is a technical issue. But extracting oil from the ground, if it was a technical issue, Venezuela would be a powerhouse. But the reason why oil production in Venezuela collapsed, as so many other things collapsed, is because oil is a long-term investment proposition. You have to part with a lot of money and wait until you get a cash flow to recover that money over a very long period of time. And in that long period of time, you have to be assured that you have some property rights that are going to be respected. And if he thinks that right now he's going to recover oil production because he's going to tell U.S. major companies to go out and part with billions of dollars in Venezuela in the context of an illegitimate government because Maduro stole an election, but this woman who's now president of Venezuela, she didn't even pretend to win an election. She was appointed by a guy who stole an election. And he's going to give concessions that have no approval in law by any National Assembly that was elected by anybody. And you would expect that the moment they will go back to democracy, that any of those conditions are going to be respected by a new political majority. So I think that the democracy is not a goal to be put after economic recovery. Democracy is an instrument of economic recovery. It's the way of telling Venezuelans your rights will be protected. Go back and dream. Go back and
try to capture what you knew as a kid. Ricardo Hausmann with us of Harvard University, folks. We're thrilled that he could be with us. Shannon O'Neill coming up. We welcome all of you around the world. Please subscribe to YouTube. Paul and I humbled by the digital success this year. Paul Sweeney with Ricardo Hausmann.
Professor, do we know, or what can you tell us about what the average Venezuelan really on the ground wants from this government going forward, or from any government?
Well, I mean, Venezuelans voted massively in favor of a change of direction, right? When they were allowed to have a primary that the government tried to prevent, well, Maria Corina Machado won with 90+% of the vote. When she was not allowed to run and she anointed somebody to run instead, they voted, this guy won with a margin of 40 points, and he didn't win by more because they did not let us Venezuelans abroad vote, and they did not let 3 million young Venezuelans to register. Had that happened, we would have won with an even larger margin. So Venezuelans are unified politically in a new direction. If you allowed Venezuelans to choose, they would choose a very competitive legal framework for oil, and they would engineer an oil boom. We don't need American help to engineer an oil boom, because the world is full of oil companies that would want to get back into Venezuela under the right conditions. And we have a political majority to create the right conditions. But this system that they have described right now, it's not workable. It's something that works on a day-to-day basis, that they're saying, well, we leave the same bad guys that were in power before, the guys who are indicted. I mean, the guys who are in the same indictment as Nicolas Maduro one is the Minister of Defense, and the other one is the Minister of the Internal Police. So it's the same guys who are there, and they pretend to say, well, we are going to tell them what to do, and they're going to do our bidding. But when they say our bidding, they think that they can get a recovery of Venezuela without empowering Venezuelan citizens with rights. That's not going to work.
Professor, do you think there's a scenario where the Trump administration can, in fact, exert control over this government like I think they can?
Well, I mean, what they think they can is to say, either you do what I tell you or I kill you. Because I have drones, I don't want to put boots on the ground. I have drones, I have missiles, I can kill you. So you better do what we want. But
Ricardo, I don't mean to interrupt, Ricardo, but Paul nailed it with that question. What this is about is direct community violence, whether it's Cuba or Venezuela. I mean, President Trump and his advocates have to decide if they want to participate with people who are violent. How do you, in your Venezuela, how do we move forward to a constructive end? What's the Hausmann process in January, February, and March of this year?
Well, you want to empower the people who have strategic interests that are aligned with you. And that is all the Venezuelan Democrats. So this idea that you can do your thing without having to deal with the organized Venezuelan opposition that under enormously difficult situations was able to win an election
and win big.
You want to empower them to help you. You want a strategic alliance with them, but you don't want to hear this dismissive description of Maria Corina Machado as somebody who's not respected in Venezuela. I challenge you to mention somebody in the world who's more respected than Maria Corina Machado. Obviously, she's super respected in Venezuela. That's why she can win elections in Venezuela. Now, that's different from saying she has the command over troops.
We're going to have Shannon O'Neill with us, Professor Hausmann, but let me ask you this viscerally. This came up, Paul, last night at the dining room table. Where does the military of Venezuela fit in? I mean, if I look at the Philippines and the shift from Duterte to the younger Marcos, the military played a part there in stability. Is the military of your Venezuela stable or unstable?
The military of Venezuela is led by a narco-terrorist organization, and they're still in power. But below that, there's a lot of people who would be willing, who would want to go back to a more democratic regime under civilian rule. But they're not allowed to organize. They're being spied by the military secret police, and they're being put in prison. They're being tortured. So what we need, if Trump is going to demand something from Delcy Rodriguez, is that she deliver Diosdado Cabello, the head of the police, Vladimir Padrino, the Minister of Defense. Those are the heads of the cartel of the Suns, el cartel de los soles. They are the narco traffickers. They are now in charge of the country, and they are the ones who yesterday put in prison 12 journalists, so that the number of political prisoners in Venezuela is going up, not down. Okay, so you want to fix the country, you need to get rid of this leadership, this corrupt criminal leadership that is in control of the army, and to empower the bulk of the army to go back to civilian rule.
Paul, get one more question in here with Professor Hausmann.
Is there a scenario where the people of Venezuela rise up and force change?
I think that, everybody now is willing to give a line of credit because, we've tried so hard to get rid of Maduro and we weren't able to do it on our own. So everybody's very happy that the U.S. was able to get rid of Maduro. But they're hoping that this is the beginning of a good process. But, the statements of Trump after, at Mar-a-Lago and afterwards were extremely disempowering and concerning. They described a vision for the future that I do not think is going to work. And I don't think that Venezuelans are going to feel that is the right frame.
Professor Hausmann, thank you so much for leading our coverage this morning. Ricardo Hausmann with the Kennedy School, Harvard, and of course, look to his piercing essay in The Economist.